The feeling. I usually have to leave them on my dash so I don't forget, so I can actually make it home. Set them down somewhere.
I'm bad about that.
If there's anything close, I can't see.
Oh, okay.
We're live. I think we're
Okay,
ready.
ready? Is Jim on there? Good evening, there he is. Good evening, Jim. Thank you. Okay, well, it's 6 o'clock.
Good evening.
So we'll begin. Welcome. Good evening. We'll begin with introduction. I'm Jean Wooten, Zone 1, LBL ESD Board Chair, Board Member, whatever I am.
I'm Jason Hay, I'm the superintendent.
Roger Irvin, Zone 2.
Amy Vetter, Board Member, Zone 5, she, her.
Michael Thompson, Board Member, Zone 3.
Miriam Cummins, she, her, ella, Zone 6.
Michael Ware, Executive Financial Officer. Tim Jones, Executive IT Officer.
And Senior Physics. Lisa Shane, Executive Assistant.
Tina Winterly, Executive Director of Human Resources.
Kimberly McCutcheon-Gross, I'm the Program Coordinator for Early Intervention.
Recognition.
Jim Blount, he, him, Zone 4.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we'll go to the pledge now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We're on to monthly acknowledgements.
Okay, so if you turn to page 6 of your board packet, you will see a little write-up regarding African American History Month, which is all of February, and it's really a time to honor the profound contributions, resilience, and achievements of African Americans throughout history. And one thing I would just encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to read a little bit about her, but one story that I think is a really good story to learn about is Letitia Carson. She was one of the first black women to settle in Oregon, and she was a formerly enslaved, unmarried African American woman, and she really was resilient and persisted and won some battles in her own life, and I think her story really shows us what it was like for early African American settlers in Oregon. And then also, if you didn't know this, one of our component district schools in Corvallis was renamed after her. So kind of a neat story. I would definitely take a look at it.
I believe OPB highlighted her on one of their.
Did they? Oh, okay.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's really neat.
Are there any public comments? There's none. All right. So we'll come on down to the, excuse me, agenda, consent agenda. Is there any?
Yeah, could I give just a brief explanation? So on the consent agenda, you're going to see a whole lot of out-of-state travel, and I want to just give you some context for this, because at first glance, you would think, oh my gosh, what is going on that we can afford all of this out-of-state travel in a time when we're going into next year, definitely knowing that we have cuts that we are going to potentially have to make, or really, even if we're not making major cuts, we are going to have to really tighten our belt with those things. This out-of-state travel is all connected to, which unfortunately happens about every other year at times, to the end of the biennium and grant funds that are not expended. And so primarily in our Cascade Regional grant, we have a number of grant funds that didn't get expended because of not filling some positions. At times, even if we have positions that are filled, but then someone goes on a leave of absence, like when they have a maternity leave or something like that, we very often can't fill those maternity leaves. And if they go through paid leave for a period of time, and then they go into unpaid for a period of time, well, that unpaid leave ends up creating savings for us, which then gets pushed off in this way. The other thing that's a factor in this that I think as we get into budget development, and you're going to hear more about this, is that we were impacted in a positive way from federal ESSER dollars. That was money that came out through the COVID dollars. And we basically got to the end of spending ESSER money this past year. And so we actually had a lot of things coded to ESSER, which then created space on the grant for some of these grants. So that's why you're seeing so many of these things. We're at a spot of wanting to give as many professional development opportunities to our staff if we are able, and this is a time we're able to do that. That's the context for that. You know, Rocco, did I get all the financial pieces right on that?
You did. I think the only other piece
check me on that.
Yeah, the only other piece that I would highlight as well, particularly with the Cascade Regional Grant, remember that we did not get what final number we were tracking for the biennium until 14 months into the grant. So they had actually told us in the beginning that we were going to have $6.6 million for the biennium, and 14 months later they said you have 7.1. So the entire first year, right, had we known, we would have hired more people in year one of the grant, but 14 months in, it's too late to let us know that.
I knew I was forgetting something else, so thank you.
There's always one more piece, and it's
Exactly.
usually ODE, so.
Yeah.
Very perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, a lot.
Yeah.
Professional development.
Anything?
Nope, no, nothing else on that. I think you can just go forward with consent.
So if there is, we need a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. So moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So moved. I corrected. So now, we're on to approval of personnel. I was on this, Gene, pay attention.
That's okay, that's actually the second page. And we're
There we
right
go.
there.
There we go. All right. So we're at the superintendent evaluation. Any comments or anybody have anything like to say or present at this time regarding patient's evaluation?
I would just like to say that I think it really expresses the impressive person we have in the superintendent's place. And it's been a pleasure working with him. It's only his first year, so I can only imagine what's coming.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well then, we could entertain a motion to accept it.
So I would move approval of the 2025-26 superintendent evaluation.
Second.
Second.
Rapid decision.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2025-2026 superintendent evaluation. Are there any comments? And I just echo what Roger said. Nothing but sunny days down the road.
Well, thank you.
So with that, all those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. All right. And now we're on to the fun part here. So this is the discussion of nominations for chair-elect of Oregon Association of Education Service Districts. And this would be for Dr. Jeffrey.
Just allow it spelled. Yes, indeed. That poor kid in school, right?
Okay.
I have a
attended, breakout sessions at an OSCA conference where, Dr. Cropper led it, and I was just really impressed by his knowledge and his heart. It was, the breakout session was on, trauma-informed, how to work with children from a trauma-informed perspective, and he just approached it with so much empathy and passion and care, and also just reading through his bio, like, wow, I'm impressed. He's accomplished a lot, so, I personally wholeheartely think that he would be a fantastic person.
I actually got to know him when I was superintendent in Dayton, and he really is an incredible person. And, yeah, he has done an incredible amount in his career.
Is he the only one that is up for nomination for the chair?
He is,
Okay.
yeah.
Would you like to make a motion, or?
I move to nominate for the chair-elect of the Oregon Association of Education Service District, OAESD, Dr. Jeffrey Crapper.
Second.
Moved and seconded to nominate for the chair-elect of the Oregon Association of Education Service Districts, OAESD, Dr. Jeffrey Crapper. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, so the board reports, any board reports?
Trying to be like, what month are we in?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Well, let's see, so we had our retreat,
yeah,
right?
we did.
Mm-hmm. And I have an appreciation for Zoom.
The 2 full days of it is a lot.
Zoom fatigue is real.
Yes. Anyway, so, well, what I see, I enjoyed, like, we got a lot accomplished, and it's always good to get together as a group and share and with ideas and spend time together.
It definitely wasn't the same attending via Zoom.
It was not, it was kind of isolated. It didn't, yeah. I was pleased to have the opportunity, but Amy's right, it's not the same. You gotta be there in person.
Definitely better than not being able to attend at all. Zoom is such an amazing tool for, like, when things come up and we're unable to be there in person, but it is.
Anybody have anything to say about the retreat? Okay. Well,
You know, just kudos, I've done a few of these, and I just felt like we got a lot done, and that's credit to superintendent laying out a program that was doable and march through it. It was worthwhile. Good.
Glad you liked it.
okay, so on the board policies, thank goodness, I thought that they were not gonna get us anymore.
My favorite
We
part.
were just gonna be done with board policies forever.
That's right, forever.
Not so much.
Yes, and this came true. I don't know why Lisa had to print it all. So anyway, this is all first readings, if I'm not mistaken.
That is
You are
correct.
correct. Yep.
So I'm sure everybody's read through all of it extensively.
So I can give a little bit about, so the first two is actually the exact same policy. It just lives in 2 different sections of our board code. It's structured. And it came out of House Bill 4160, required a change in the definition of a student. So it changed that a student who left school or graduated from high school within 90 days to within 1 calendar year when it comes to reporting for suspected sexual conduct with students and reporting requirements.
So I'm curious, why would they make that change? Significant time.
I think it's to ensure that students that just come out of high school are protected.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
That there aren't people just, you know, waiting the 90 days to.
just gets one more year of protection.
Yes, I think what was said during that was like students weren't reporting because, one, this allowed time for them to seek the counseling and everything that they needed to feel brave enough to be able to come forward.
Good, good. Okay, thank you.
And then policies 3 through 10, if you watch the news at all, you know that Oregon paid leave came into play, I guess, 2 years ago, officially 3. So we had to, there was quite a bit of changes with the FEMLA, which is Family Medical Leave, OFLA, which is the Oregon version of it, and then Oregon paid leave became the third segment of this. It actually made things much more complicated. We have a specialist on our HR team that manages all of these protected leave requests. And so there's a lot of information in these policies. And I can say that she knows it inside, upside down, all the way around. And it has been there's been a lot of collaboration with specialists like her across the state to be like, hey, here's a scenario, like, this is how we used to handle it, how would we handle it now? And so this is just to get all of those policies up to date with the new laws and how that went. We've been operating under this new law since July 1st, but policies, it takes a while for policies to get.
We actually, so Deidre is the person that Christina is referring to, started attending trainings and going through all the professional development right after the law was passed. And you can see how sometimes it takes a while for the lawyers at OSBA to actually go through and do all of the policy writing that goes with the law, but there were people that were doing those trainings and interpreting that right out of the gate. And so she made sure we were compliant right away. And it is very complicated.
Does it have to be?
Does it have to be? Probably not, but, you know, like a lot of things, that sometimes they're just complicated. Yeah. The page 96. So on page 96, you will see the policy that we discussed in the board retreat about allowable expenses, and we just worked to capture what we talked about during the retreat. I wanted to make sure that you got a chance to see it. I shouldn't say black and white, I should say red and green. You get to see it in red and green. And so the first part is on page 99 of cost of meals may not exceed, and so this is the language that we discussed, a reasonable amount per participant for breakfast, lunch, and dinner following government per diem rates. So there are per diem rates depending on where you are. And then we put the reasonable amount in. If you remember, the discussion was around sometimes, you know, like the coast is a good example. You might go out to the coast and there might not be a lot of options. You might end up going over that per diem amount. And if you have especially if you have a large group or something like that, then we just have to go with that. And then the second part here is just around gratuity, and this is just, as we discussed, getting with the times to make sure that we are in more in alignment with what is standard practice and treating the wonderful wait staff that often will help us at restaurants of doing 20% gratuity versus 15%, which often we don't have to worry about very much, again, if we have a big group, because they add gratuity into the final tab anyway. Typically, it's been about 18%, 18 to 22%, depending on what it is. And then on page 100, you'll remember we crossed off a personal phone call. You can tell how old this policy was, because I don't think anybody pays for a personal phone call with a pay phone or the work phone or anything like that anymore. So there you go.
And the other question, Jason, on the per diem, with the following the government per diem rate, would that be like a reimbursement like before, like you get it like before you travel, or would that be after travel?
It can be either.
Okay.
What we typically do is we will do it after in most cases, because a lot of times people might change, or they get to a conference and realize that, oh, the conference actually provided a meal at some point, and then we don't have to try to get the money back from someone. However, if there is a hardship in some way of being able to cover the costs in the time from when your per diem check might come in after, we have given it upfront to staff as the per diem check. So it's gone both ways.
Where do you look for that? Is it like on the IRS
If
website?
If you
or?
Google government per diem rate,
Okay, that would
it'll be
go
the
up?
first
Okay.
thing that will come up.
All right.
And then what you have to do is you have to put in the location that you're at,
That you're-
because it's
okay.
different depending on the location.
Yeah.
So, you know, for example, the per diem rate out at the coast is higher than in the valley. And it all just depends on, it's rates of, they do like rates of hotels and restaurants, and it's different depending on where you're at.
Also created a document for us, an Excel sheet for all the AAs that fill these documents out. And we just put in the number, and then it does all the math and everything.
Oh, wow.
He helped us all out
Yeah.
with doing those numbers.
Yeah, so really all we have to do is look up the location and find out what the per diem amount is and put it in there, and it takes care of it. So it's a nice one. Yeah, that's it on that. And if those all make sense to you in terms of questions, they'll come back in consent with the next meeting. Yes, up next is the wonderful Kimberly, here presenting about EIECSE, our first report. And Kimberly's presentation is in your board packet, but she'll also do a share screen.
Okay, so Autumn and Tina and Katie and I were talking about what we should present. We've done a lot of different things in the past couple of years, but after some of you came out to Dixie School, we kind of thought that maybe just an overview of our program and the different locations would be helpful. That's what we did. We're going to start with just some pictures of children. All these kids receive their services in Newport. And just for context, Lincoln County serves 16 kids in EI, so that's birth until their 3rd birthday. They serve 100 kids in ECSE, which is from when they turn 3 until they go to kindergarten, and 57 of those ECSE kids are served in the community. Katie wrote these things up, and some of the things she's excited about are the Ocean Lake classrooms. They have the Newport Early Childhood Center, and they had one classroom in the Taft Elementary School, which is in Beacon City. And they found out partway through the fall that they were going to have to relocate that classroom to a different school. And initially, there was a lot of upsetness about it. They'd had that classroom for a long time, a lot of conversation about it, had a little tiny toilet, and they wanted to keep the classroom with the tiny toilet. But they did move over winter break, and they are really excited about it because it's right across the street from one of the Lincoln County School District preschools, so they have like a community partner close by. And in the elementary school, they're in the classroom right next door is their special education classroom. So it really provides them a nice opportunity to collaborate with both those groups. And the other thing they're excited about in Newport is some kindergarten transition stuff. This winter, the Lincoln County School District is doing kindergarten open houses specifically for kids with IFSCs at each of their elementary schools. And Katie's making sure her staff are there to really try to connect them a little bit better. So those are the things she's excited about out there. And this is just a picture of the classroom.
Did they convince the school district to give them a tiny toilet?
I don't know, I didn't
I mean,
follow up on
you
the
should have gone in there, like, where's our tiny toilet? You know, those things can be switched out.
I don't know. And then Dixie and Crawfordsville are the sites that I oversee. We have 65 children in early intervention there, 235 in early childhood special ed, and 137 of them are curriculum. Some pictures of kids at Dixie. This little boy on the bottom is really enjoying coloring on this screen. He has a harder time engaging in those activities when they're penciling paper, but he's doing a really nice job there. Lots of sensory play. And then some of the things, I'm just going to leave this up to the next slide, and so I know it's on it. Some of the things I'm excited about there are that we've started some new community partnerships that may or may not continue until next year because there's been some struggles, but we traded time with the Robbins Nest, which is a preschool in Corvallis. She's running a classroom out of one of the classrooms at Dixie in exchange for letting us place kids in her classroom. We struggled a little bit with getting enough community kids willing to drive to Dixie because apparently crossing that bridge from Corvallis is too much. So it may or may not work. She might not be able to get enough kids, but that's what we've done this year. We've been able to place some kids in that classroom. And we've also tried to do some more partnerships with our Head Start and having some of our staff go there. So we're playing around with those things too. I'm always excited about just trying to build those collaborations. And then the other thing I'm excited about is Autumn and I wrote our professional goals around kindergarten transition. My two sites share kids in 8 districts. And I know this ESD has 12 districts, but trying to coordinate that transition of kids for 8, yes. It just really felt like a lot, and I felt like some schools we had a really good plan, and some schools I didn't have a good plan. So Autumn and I created the goal. She shared numbers with everybody at fall district visits, and then she and I have met. We've invited all of my 8 districts to meet. I think only 5 of us took them up on it, but we met with Fed directors and whoever else they wanted to be there, made sure the right people had access to our database, made sure we knew how we were going to share our plans with them, and how to access them. So it's just been really nice to have those conversations, and I feel like that's really important. Our transitions being good in all the districts rather than just the select few that we had a good plan to have. And then Lynn County is mostly at Clover Ridge. That's where Tina is running this program. She has 57 kids in EI and 109 and 80 of those kids are in community sites. So this Lynn County is always our lowest community placement because we don't have placement of kids in Lynn County. There's just less preschools and we have less partnerships. Pictures of her kids.
One thing to add while Kimberly goes to the next one is when you look at those community placements, we are constantly trying to up those numbers because that means kids are being served in an environment that is least restrictive and with their age peers that they would be going to kindergarten often. And so that's where we're always trying to do that rather than serve kids in one of our sites that would be a more restricted environment. Yeah, it's just one of those things that we have to remember. Yeah, absolutely. It's all good. Yeah.
Tina wrote this, that the thing she's really excited this year about is working on building community. They're doing a lot of work around just making people feel like a group. They do monthly recognition for each other. Tina shares things and people acknowledge each other. And I think a lot of you can come out of it. Helps people feel like another thing we do in our program are evaluations. So this is just an update of what we've done so far this year. We've done 453 special ed evaluations, and I think we made these slides a week or two ago, so it's probably 20 or 30 more than that by now. And of those, 293 kids were eligible. And then autism spectrum disorder evaluations are listed separately because as we bring kids in when they come when kids enter special education from a school district, they're already in a school, but when they're referred to us, they're often not in a school. So, the eligibility process for autism is significantly longer than it is for some of the other eligibilities we do. So often we'll bring kids in under another category if we can, and get to know the child, give them a social opportunity, and then look at autism. So we've kind of redone how we're doing those autism evals this year. But so far we finished 26, so there are 36 that have already been referred. And so this last list is our inclusion partner sites. Jason was talking about our community preschools. This list, Periwinkle Child Development Centers at LBCC, Old Mill Centers in Fort Dallas, Cascade Preschools in Lebanon, Central Lynn, and then the last three are in Lincoln County. And all of these partners are part of our community inclusion teams. We have a Lincoln County team and a Lynn Benton team. And all of these preschools come to those meetings. They work with us to try to figure out how to elevate inclusive practices across them. So each one of these comes to our meetings. They all have agreed to have our consultants in and work on the things our consultants are suggesting. And they all do a fidelity tool, so they work with our staff to kind of assess their inclusive practices and then come up with goals for those things. This is the picture of Chandra, who runs the Central Lynn Early Literacy Program, and she has kind of a funny old room in a funny old elementary school, and she's just doing amazing things there. She, her consultant is Melissa Brunel, and they have a really great relationship, and that's all I have. Does anybody have questions? I have to say, like, I have this immense gratitude for early intervention, just because, one, like, my son went through that process and he was 18 months, and he's now still in special ed, and so being able to recognize and give him the resources early on in his development really helped him be to where he's at now. And so I think that's why I'm a big proponent of, like, early intervention, getting that resource for your child, because I'm seeing it within my own son, how much it has helped him. And so I just want to say thank you, like, immensely from the bottom of my heart, that I have seen how important it was for my son to get the speech help, to get all of that, to be at a place where he might actually exit out next year. So that for us is really, like, it just speaks volumes to the amount of work that you all do, and I'm just very grateful, and I want to say thank you. Please let everybody know. I will.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Brings it home, like, the story of, like, the actual kids that are
I
bearing
think
the fruit of.
absolutely. I think I might have shared this when we were out at our Dixie visit, but, you know, if you're ever feeling down, you know, it's a great place to go and get a little boost, you know. And I can certainly say that as a superintendent, when you just are doing the administration of things over and over, and after a while you're thinking, what am I doing? I need a little boost here, you know. Let's go see some little kids. They always put a smile on my face. Yeah.
And we're grateful for all you do for them. I have friends out in Iowa that have kids with a overreach, and she got twins before out there. She can't say enough about them. Development, the improvement in the amount of time they've been there, and you make a difference. You truly do, and not just the kids' life, but the family life. It's important the family know how to deal with the children and how to help them. We thank you very much.
Thank you.
Down here by my agenda library. Okay.
Well, I think you're still on that page.
There I am. There we go. So we're down here to
Yeah, I could actually, it's okay, I could take this one if you want.
You betcha.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take this one, even though it has Christina's name on it. We talked about this earlier, and just to explain this. So, this action, we do need a board action from you, and it is to authorize administration to implement reduction in force. It sounds very general, and it is. However, I want to just put a finer point on it so that you understand what it really is for. The board has some involvement when it comes to licensed staff. So this reduction in force authorization is about licensed staff. At this point, I couldn't even indicate if we are actually going to do this with licensed staff. We need more information. We're working on building our budgets and going through processes to see where we're at, and we're hoping that we can prove if we have to make some reductions that they can happen through attrition. We definitely have had a few people that have indicated that they are retiring or, leaving the district, and we're just being very careful that if we have to make cuts, that we use those positions that are vacated to make the cuts through attrition and not have to rip anyone. And so that's what it is. I still need the board to authorize this because this very well might have to be a tool that we use. I will keep the board updated about this when we get closer to if this is something that we need to do. And you will know very specifically what positions we're talking about, and I'll make sure that I'm communicating that to you. So that's what that is for.
I appreciate the emphasis on attrition. That's what's going to happen. That fits the value system we have for our employees.
Yeah, it's always so hard when you get into these spots of there's a lot of development, and actually, EIUCAC is a great example, is that they work really hard to recruit people. There are not a lot of people that get a degree in early childhood special education. And when you find someone like that, you want to hang on to them. And when you have a junior person that just started recently, and that's who ends up getting laid off if we have to make cuts, it's just heart-wrenching. It's heart-wrenching to see any time that happens. I mean, it's the worst thing that I've ever had to do as a leader is to give that kind of notice. But when you lose your younger people that you hope that they're going to be around to continue serving, it's really tough. We just need a motion from, love for somebody to make a motion to authorize this.
I move to authorize the administration to implement reduction in force as needed in order to meet budget reductions as they occur, with the understanding that the board will receive regular updates.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to authorize the administration to implement reductions in force as needed in order to meet budget reductions as they occur, with the understanding that the board will receive a regular update. Is there any further discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
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 So moved.
Thank you.
And now we're on to the fun part of it.
At least I got to follow reduction force rather than the EIUCAC.
Yeah, I know. We have really fun presentations that come in. We probably need something like that in between for business every time. Usually Rocco does have to follow somebody's great presentation that, hey, let's talk about money.
All right, let's take a look and find out what happened this month. I believe we are on page
116.
116, and I, of course, am going to skip all over the gobbledygook and go straight to page 119. So we can see what happened in terms of revenues. So revenue for the month, we took in $3.6 million in the month, or rather we recorded it. Of that, $2.6 million of it is us claiming stuff on grants. So our grants, we incur expenses on our grants, we file for it, and they send us the money back. So this is them sending some of the money back that we already spent. Other than that, we continue to get that, state revenue sharing. That's our state school fund payment, that $898,000. And most of the rest of that on there is just taxes coming in, so that tax figure is gonna go way down, down, down until June, where we'll get a final spike as everybody rushes in their tax payment before they get penalties for the next year. All right, let's go on to page 120 and take a look at the expenses. This was actually on a little bit of the low side of standard expenses. So our payroll hits exactly where we think it's going to. Our associated payroll costs do as well. We're spending a little bit less than average on supplies and materials and whatnot on here, because by this point in time of the year, most of the stuff we have is in the door. We will likely see some of this spike up in the near future as we get towards the end of the year. There are a couple of things that we tend to do. So we tend to look at what is available remaining in our budgets on there and make a large purchase of, everybody's got to help me out with this, the protocol materials.
For special education testing.
So I think we're doing well, and then suddenly somebody spends $100,000 on things that I never see. So they pop up towards the end of the year. I know.
I was like, what are these things?
We got to serve children or something, you know? So that'll happen, and we also, we will do some grant fund spend down stuff towards the end of the year as well. So we're probably going to see some of these numbers tick up towards the end, but nonetheless, this month, everything came in fairly standard on expenses as well. Let's go to page 121. And cash report, we have $23.3 million in the bank right now, which is terrific. Our next note payable will go out sometime in May. And on page 122, that's our cash balance trending on there, and we're at a nice high number on the cash balance, which is great because it makes us feel secure and we get to earn interest income off it while it's in there. And you'll see on that moving trend balance on there, you'll see that sort of flattening that we've been expecting all along. So we're kind of hovering around that just south of $19 million number. And other than that, I just wanted to give a quick update based off of where we are in the year so far. We have really good projections as to where we think everything is going to come in for the year. So we have about 25 different places that we need to make those projections, and I am not going to bring you through each of one of those. But to generally characterize the big spaces that we have, first off, the Tier 1 budget looks really, really clean. We should come in, our budget was at about $14.7 million. We're going to come in really close to that number, maybe just a touch below. Anything we don't spend in that fund gets returned to our districts in the form of Tier 2 in the subsequent years, so we don't really worry so much if it doesn't get fully spent out. It always goes to a good place. The ESD budget, so the budget that we use to sort of manage everything that's central to everything else, we are coming in on budget, so our budget is right about $5.2 million is what we wanted to spend for the year. We are hovering right around that number. We have availability to spend more. We have a safety cushion balance that is out there, but we try to stay within our means, meaning whatever number we're going to get income in the year, we want to make sure that we can stay underneath that, and right now we're hovering around at that level as well. So everything on the general fund looks clean. As we go through for our major grants, we track those with the groups every single month. Each one of our grants looks clean. So by clean, there's no worry of running over expenditure on any grant, barring some major unforeseen expenditure that would happen that would really pop out of the woodwork, because we would know it would be. And we should, at this point as well, for those grants where we do have the spare capacity, we have pretty clean plans for getting that fruitfully spent before the end of the term. I'd say probably the only grant that we're likely to actually have a material return balance on is on the long-term care and treatment grant. It will be, I'm not going to use the word difficult, it will be unlikely that we will spend the full balance of that grant by the end of the biennium on there. But again, anything that doesn't get spent, it's going to go back up to the state level and it's going to get respent on kids anyway. So we never want to be, we want to spend fully on our students, but we don't ever want to spend foolishly just to spend. Last place that we look on there are sort of enterprise funds. and our enterprise funds are tracking about where we expected this year. We planned to take a loss in the enterprise funds this year, knowing that we had a couple of startup endeavors that are out there, so we will take a loss this year. Fortunately, that loss looks like it's going to be a little bit less than what we budgeted for. So I'm glad to hear that as well, and compared to the balance that we have available in that fund, we're going to leave ourselves in a really healthy position by year end. So this is me telling you, feel good about this year, and now we need to start looking at next year. So I'm going to start more and more focusing on what is coming up in the next year and the next biennium as we plan out. It's nice to be able to know that we're in a secure spot with everything. It's nice to be able to know that we're tracking well operationally, but we do have to recognize that we have some real challenges in front of us in terms of what our likely cost increases are going to be next year and what our likely funding streams are going to be next year. So we're going to kind of shift focus a little bit more forward on that. Any questions, thoughts? Anybody dying for me to go to each 25 funds?
I know you hate to be the bearer of bad tidings, but appreciate the insight and for the group to be able to know there's probably some rough days coming rather than all at once we get a letter from Roscoe saying, oh, guess what? So I think we're better off prepared than to be surprised.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
Yep. Definitely try to do that.
Any other comments or thoughts? Miss Jim? Oh? Okie dokie. Thank you, Roscoe.
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, Rocco, would you do me a favor? You had sent me that board thing in a chat recently, and I did not get it into the board packet. You go into the chats that you would have it find.
So chat with me.
Yeah, the chat with Lisa and me.
All right.
And we can do a screen
I couldn't
share.
remember what you were
sorry.
referring to.
Yeah, so I'll explain to
Yeah.
everyone else. So the next thing under business is one, you had asked during the retreat for us to look at the board budget expenditures and what that looks like. And with all the different things going on, we didn't get it into the board packet for you, but we can have Rocco put it up on the screen and we can look at it so that we can see that a little bit. While he looks for that, I will just kind of give you a rundown of some of there's really just a few things that sit inside of this. Primarily it's travel, and when we look at travel at both in-district and out-of-district travel, it's very rare for the board to do a whole lot of in-district travel, but it's really out-of-district travel when we go to things like that. We do have some, in the past, we've had some dues and fees that have come out of this, and some legal services that come out of this, and also this is where our legal fees for negotiation sit. And you'll see this when Rocco puts it up here. We also had, at times, depending on what year it is and where we're at, we'll end up with some election service things. So I'm going to have Rocco just blow this up a little bit, and you can kind of see as I walk through this. So you can see the top part is travel. And how that sort of trends is, you can see it, some years we've been lower. 2021, obviously, was during the pandemic, so there was almost none that sat there versus the past few years a little higher. And then if you see the dues and fees, so it looks like dues and fees went way down. There's a little explanation with this, is that OA ESD dues used to sit here. Sometimes we just, it's like you figure out where you're going to code something, and we used to code our OA ESD dues to this until 2024 when we thought it made sense for it to sit somewhere else. Legal services, you can see, legal services have gone down quite a bit. I will give kudos around this to one individual who really has done a lot of her due diligence in making sure this happens. This is Christina. Christina, in looking at things within human resources, we've coded legal fees to this, and she has done a really good job of when we need legal advice, which is really what we should do, is OSBA free. up to a certain amount of hours rather than call our attorney. And so that is something that Christina and I have talked about when she started, is that, we'll only call the attorney when we really know that we need to call the attorney. And we'll start with PACE legal or OSBA legal first. And we already paid dues to them, so why not? So that really, you can see the legal fees have gone way down. And that is really just a testament to Christina's due diligence. So, and Christina, by herself, in a short time, has saved us about $9,000. So, nice job. The next one, you can see earlier this year we had, 0 for. And, I can give Christina kudos for the first one, and then I could blame her for the next one. But when we look at negotiation services, that's also legal fees, and we're gonna start negotiating and bargaining. So we will have some expenditures that will be there, and it's really not Christina's fault, but it's fun to blame someone.
What's
Yeah.
the election service?
Yeah, so election services, if you look at that, so that's the next one. So remember when we had to redistrict?
Okay, yeah, I remember.
And we went through all that whole process, that was part of it. Lisa, what else?
Every 2 years, every
Yep.
time there's an election.
We have to pay for the election.
We pay Lynn County, Benton County, Lincoln County, we pay some to Lane County. We get a bill from all of the districts, every time there's an election, and it's like 15,000, for the election, for every single district.
Yep.
Per county, what do you have to pay?
So in that, the big one, the $40,000 one was because there was the redistricting, in 2021, in addition to the election, the regular election fees.
School board, we pay it every election.
So why do we have, I'm just curious,
The statute,
the statute?
Yep.
That we have to pay?
we pay, yep.
We would not pay it if we did not have to.
That's right. If they didn't make us pay it, we wouldn't be sending them money.
So it's basically for all the work that they do to process.
Exactly.
And count
The
ballots
counting
all
and,
that
yep.
fun stuff.
Exactly, yep, the counties don't cover that cost. The next one, other general professional technical, honestly, I don't remember what that one was at all.
Back in 21, I couldn't tell you.
I don't remember, but you can see, we haven't been spending it.
Was that when we bought, the laptops? Was that part of that?
Maybe,
No, that wouldn't
but
be that.
I don't know. Yeah, laptops would be somewhere else. I'm not sure what that one was. And then you can see there's some printing and there's some meeting expenses that are down there. And so, you can kind of see where we sit, this year. Rocco, do you recall what was put in the budget? I want to say that this year we put, it's about 38,000, I think, that went into the budget.
Yeah, and so the way.
In terms of
The way that I tend to view this budget, the travel is something that is unique to the board, right? It's something that would be discreetly managed at the board level. These other expenditures are something that are also operating the board. The things that are in the center here are things that we have to do as an ESD. You don't really get to say to us on there like, hey, no lawyers, right? We're gonna have lawyers, right? So it's more convention that we code this expense here, not necessarily that it is a direct board expenditure. So we tend to look at that top line and the bottom line as, those are things we would directly manage. The other ones just happens to be.
And really, it's about governance. When you look at like negotiation services, for example, that is just the way that it's structured, So when we go to the negotiating table and our administrative team is at the bargaining table, they're bargaining on behalf of you, the board, so that's why it sits there. It's not in the superintendent's budget, because the superintendent, isn't really, even though my team is negotiating and I would be, potentially at the negotiating table, but it really is on behalf of the board. So that's where some of the convention comes.
Yeah, it's just convention.
So the negotiation services, how that cost is calculated is for instance, when we have staff there, their time, what we use,
Nope.
or what is that?
Those are basically also legal fees.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so you can see the legal services and negotiation services are both legal fees. So, when you go back to 22, for example, we spent just under $9,000 on lawyer fees for negotiating the contract.
So in general, when we're managing the ESD's budget, this center thing of professional and technical fees, I'm never going to look at it isolated to just what we coded to the board. We're gonna look at it to the ESD in total, right? Because in any given year, if somebody took the legal fee and they coded it to HR or they coded it over to the board on there, we don't particularly care. So we're always gonna look at it rolled up and see what are our total legal fees going for, and we would expect that in negotiation years, they are going to spike up on us.
Yeah.
Hopefully this is helpful for you to have a little bit of a
Yeah.
picture of, you know, expenditures and everything. You can, you know, there's a variety of different things that we do. So for example, like the retreat cost us about $7,300 to do that retreat for it in that way. And so there's different things that come along in terms of travel and whatnot that we can account for. And certainly at the end of the year, Lisa in the past few years has been putting together that report about professional development, and it was a big giant spreadsheet with tabs for every program, and one of the tabs was what professional development to and how much it costs.
And the years are calendar or are they fiscal?
They're fiscal, so that's the
Okay.
school year 2020-21.
Okay,
The current one is 24-25.
okay, got it, okay. So the 2025 then includes like December, like when we went to when some of us went to.
This includes anything up through January 31st, so anything that was coded into the system by January 31st.
Okay, so
So that
no.
December trip to AESA is included in that $10,427.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the 7,300 that we spent for the retreat is not on there yet?
So it is
Okay.
not.
And what did you say our total budget of the board was?
I'd have to look, we have a figure in there, and I'd have to look and
Okay.
see, like, for that number on there. Again, it's not something that we manage in isolation, right? None of the, so when we look at any of the, we call this whole thing generally the 105
Yeah.
budget. We're looking at travel for the total organization on there and making sure that people are at their rough proportions on there, but never to a point where we would say, we budgeted, you know, 11,500 for the board on travel, you're cut off, right? Just not the way that we actually manage it.
I think what we want to always do, and I think you all look at the things this way, is, you know, what is reasonable, and we want to be cognizant, depending on the climate and what's going on, and, you know, there's definitely our optics, you know, to be had as well. You know, so I'll give you the example of, you know, looking at the retreat. If we're going into, you know, reductions this next year, we might want to consider having an on-site retreat and just doing it during the day and saying, well, we're not going to spend $7,300 on a retreat. We can still have something all day long, but we have nice facilities here. We can do it here. You know, we can bring food in like we just had for, you know, much cheaper than, you know, doing something off-site.
We did that once before,
We did, yeah.
going to the carousel
Yeah.
and such as that, so
We were at Clover Ridge in the morning and then went to the carousel.
Yeah, exactly. So that might be something, you know, I'll probably recommend that to the board in the coming months as we look at things, because the last thing that I would want to do is, you know, create any sort of circumstance where staff are going to feel, you know, less than appreciated by, you know, the board's expenditures versus what we spend on staff.
So, my recollection, this was precipitated by our discussion about ranking staff.
It was, yes, exactly. And so, if you want to look at, and this, I probably should have put it in a different order, so that's a good segue, unless you have any other questions about this.
thank you.
Yeah, so if you look on, it's actually under my superintendent reports on page 139, it's 4E. So,
To get you out of work.
no, that's okay. It's, we'll make sure we hit all of these.
nicely.
It does, actually, it's perfect, and I should have thought to just put that right there with it, but we put it under business
Oh,
because
wow.
I thought Rocco would think that would be fun. Okay, so, what I asked Nathan to do, after our retreat, and, you know, he was there with you and he got a sense for, you know, what this looks like, is to give you some options and you can kind of see. So what he's giving is, he actually has access to, wholesale prices, for things. So, if you take a look at the first page, on page 139, you can see the fees for embroidery. So the round logo is like the shirt that I have here, so this happens to be a shirt I just purchased and then, you know, got the embroidery done on it. The round logo is $12.25 versus the horizontal logo. I don't think, does anybody have the horizontal
I have it at
logo?
home.
Okay, it's a little simpler, and so with embroidery, it's all about like the number of stitches that the machine does. And so that one's $6. It's still really nice though. It's actually oh, you know what, if you look at, one of these, this information page that's, you know, underneath your packet, you can see it's at the bottom here, where it just says LBL, and it has, it's that type of thing.
Is it in one color? Is it like all in white?
I think it's all in white. I think that's why it's more simple, yeah. So that's $6. Then you can see, we talked about doing potentially, you know, and I love this idea of doing an appreciation, like staff and board, you know, apparel party is what Nathan talked about, and doing some like an appreciation type event where people can pick a t-shirt or a sweatshirt and then can actually, you know, make it with the heat press. And this is that new technology that Nathan has said that he believes all of his years of doing apparel things, that it's going to really revolutionize and make like screen press type of things a lot cheaper. But you can see the heat press transfer is about 50 cents to $1 for the heat press. And then, then you get all the things and people can pick what they want. And then, you know, we get a t-shirt or whatever it is. So if you look at the t-shirt prices, you know, you can get a t-shirt for $2.25 to $4, depending on what the quality is, and sometimes slightly different in size. And so then you can see some of the other prices on here. So, you know, I think there's different options. We have about 300 staff, so we can think about it in terms of if there's something that the board would like to do for staff appreciation in this way. All we have to do is a little bit of math and figure out what that cost would look like if you have an idea that you'd like to discuss. I personally love the idea of doing some activity where the staff can also get to know you. I know the staff like to have board members come to things, and if we were to do something like this, you know, we could pick 2 or 3 different times where people could come, make a shirt, have a treat, hang out with the school board a little bit, ask questions, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Tie that.
Yeah,
I
you
think
can
it's really cool too, that it just gives a lot of freedom for them to customize their gear. Like, I think that's one of the awesome things is, you know, and I don't know how we want to handle that as far as like, buying a bunch of different colors or like asking people for their preferences on colors.
Well, what Nathan had said is that given the low price, if we were to do t-shirts or sweatshirts or something like that, or even if you do it like these crew neck sweatshirts or the quarter zip sweatshirts have a pretty like $11.99 price. Like, we could get a variety of different things. Eventually they would get used potentially, and he just said his recommendation would be get a variety of sizes and different types of things, and somebody could just pick something while they're there. So that could be a possibility there. You can see, so that the puffy vest down in the corner is the most expensive item on this list. That's actually
This is the one you got.
that's the one that you got,
This is the one you got.
for your board
I realized
for
that.
board appreciation. We got those, and you can see, we kept it below the $50 mark, you know, so that's the important part. That's right. There's no ethics violation here.
Thank you.
So anyway, that's the information, and be happy to take direction from the board and what you'd like to see, and then I can work with Nathan to put something together, and we certainly can figure out the total price and whatnot.
I think it's a really cool idea. Not only do they get to customize their gear, but it also builds in a way for us to interact with them, and I totally lost my train of thought, and also it's like, I mean, not just us, but it's just kind of a social event.
I agree, yeah,
Multiple benefits.
I think this would be really good to do with staff, get to like know like one another and have like fun while making this. I think this is, like, 'cause what I want is like, I want staff to feel appreciated, seen, and what can we do since now we have a new logo, you know, this new branding, what can we do to give something back to our staff? So I do love having this option as the apparel party. I like that. I like the hanging out with a board member apparel party. So I think this is wonderful, and I would definitely like a hooded sweatshirt, just saying, because it's cold in Oregon. So I would make my own hoodie.
Other thoughts from board members? I mean, if that's the direction you want to go, what I would do is just work on the details of, here are some different options for dates. Lisa can find out what options for dates could work for all of you, and
We have a recommendation.
you have a recommendation. Okay.
Everybody's here at in-service in June,
Oh,
even
yeah.
those people. And Christina mentioned right after the, event in-service, but right then when all the staff are here.
That would be cool.
Is the in-service gonna be in here or at LBCC? Because last couple.
That
The
LBCC,
LBCC in
Yep.
this one. The
yeah,
June.
this one will be, the fall one, we're moving the fall one, to the county fairgrounds because the
Oh.
acoustics are better out there.
But they didn't have availability.
Yeah, we can look at that. One thing I'll talk to Nathan about, I'm thinking a little bit about scale, because, you know, how many heat presses that we
That's
can
why.
access. That would be the only thing in
Yeah,
terms of
101
scale,
is
but
break.
that's a good idea, though, yeah. Be something to do.
And what's the date? June?
13th.
I'm thinking my kids are still.
So it seems like we kind of have consensus on, come up with, some details around this and have a little more detailed proposal for you. Bring it back to the next board meeting.
Yeah, and also what design?
Yeah, and that might be, I could probably do this over a course of a couple board meetings, because Nathan can come up with things, and it'll give him a little bit more time
Yeah.
to do that. So, yeah,
Come up with some really fantastic stuff.
okay. All right, so other things in my superintendent report. So I'm gonna just go back to, now I've got to do my, thing here, what it flip pages around. This is where we have so many pages, right? I think everybody else is doing this too. What page number am I on?
123.
Yeah, that's right, let's see.
Yep.
Oh, here's the pile. It was somewhere here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Have a
Thank you
good
for
night.
coming.
Thank you.
Come back anytime.
Okay, so, if you look on page 123, this is just our typical, strategic tasks, and you'll remember this is, Lisa pulls the ones for this month that people are reporting on and everything. And I'll entertain any, questions that you might have. But one of the things that I wanted to point out was, one, if you scroll on down to number 11, says continue partnering with state and regional community agencies to provide training in districts for suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention. And so Mark Summers is a behavior consultant, and he provided a 2-day training in November. I just wanted to underscore this and how important these are. I mean, these trainings literally save lives. And so I'm really proud of, you know, the work that we do in this area. And so that's one thing we got done. That was a part of our strategic tasks. And then also, if you remember, a year ago when we had our board retreat, we were joking around with, the Talk Like a Pirate thing, and, Mark Summers is that
Yeah.
person that started Talk Like a Pirate Day. So if you didn't know that, he's famous. Yeah. So that's pretty great. I don't know, any questions on any of those other ones? Okay. Then if you look at the next one, was just a follow-up. You've seen this before. I don't know that we really need to go through this. But I did say that, we would bring this back as a follow-up and make sure that it was, in your official board packet was our 3-year plan. And we went through this, at the retreat. So I don't know, any questions on this one, at this point, or? We had quite a lot of discussion around that. Okay, so I'm gonna move on, to, let's see, that's page 121. All right, now I'm on page 130. So this is the strategic plan. So we talked about this, and for the most part, we had some great discussion around this, and I think for the most part, everyone was good with all of the language. There was a little bit of discussion around board objective number 1. Miriam had some different ideas and definitely was speaking into the space with that, but I hadn't really heard from other board members on that. I think that while we, could, have a little bit more detail here, I wasn't sure that we necessarily want to, in terms of, sticking with some amount of brevity, but I would love to see if there's any other discussion that the board has about this. And so I didn't come up with any other language. I actually think that this language works for us, but, they're the board objectives, and so see another discussion around that.
Well, I agree with you on the brevity. I mean, it's nice to have details, to have a checklist, but if you're talking broadly,
Yeah.
I think it's nice to be brief, so it's to the point. I think people get that, what we have already. I can't remember what Mary was suggesting.
I think it was something when we came to innovation, I remember that, innovation and also some of the wording to make it more understandable. And I think the reason why I brought it up is because we understand the language because we see it every day.
Yeah.
But if someone from the community reads this, they're just gonna feel like, I don't know what I'm reading.
Yeah.
And that's why I suggested that, because if we want to target our families to be able to see this when they do ask us, we want to make sure that it's in a language that is understandable for them and not have it so high,
Yeah.
in the wording.
So one thought I have, to the point that Roger was making, and the place where this is fleshed out is actually in the really colorful Gantt chart document that you have that is we've been calling it the Christmas tree document, that has all the different colors on it. That's where those board objectives sit in the more broad sense, and then you have the detail underneath that. And so, in my estimation, that sort of solves where you're getting at, is that we have some detail about what does it mean, and well, here are some of the things that it means. It depends on what the whole board is looking for.
Who sees this document besides us and the agency?
It's leaders and staff. I would say, realistically, the people that are looking at this and thinking about these board objectives are our leadership.
Okay.
To a lesser extent, our school district, we'll present this as a part of the local service plan with our school districts. I don't think it's a fault of any of them whatsoever, but I'm not sure that they care that much. They're more about the details of what are you doing for us, what's the specific language within the LSP, what are the specific tasks we're working on, which are more in that Christmas tree document. I think this is a little bit more directional. That's honestly probably more important to the board than anyone else.
Okay.
That's how I see it. It's really get us together on the same page of what we agree we ought to be doing. Yeah. We can revisit this to see if we still agree with it. But it's not really a presentational document, I don't think.
I was going to say, is this
Certainly not
put
for
on our
families.
website?
It's on our website.
So it is
Yeah,
on our
it is on our website, yeah. But in terms of, families, and I don't think that they're going to really engage with it much. Yeah. But it definitely sets the direction for us, and that's where I'm not quite as worried about spelling it out more, because the big thing is that you as a board want to know that your superintendent understands it so that I can convey that and I can be able to have that go through the system and have people be able to speak to it and create goals around it and everything.
Particularly like the values. I mean, that's a nice thing for the public to look at.
Very much so, yeah. And then also just like, sometimes, yes, we want to have details about what each of these things means, but sometimes seeing all of that at once makes it kind of easier to grasp, or makes it harder to grasp that, you know, big picture. Like, I don't know, it's the more details that are in there, the harder it is to kind of grasp as a whole. I think it makes a nice balance as it is with, conveying our objectives and our values and our mission without going overly detailed to the point where it kind of starts going.
And I think that's always what, it's interesting. So I'm in my 27th year as an educator, and I'll just poke fun at my own career. But educators are really good at adding words to things and sometimes adding more. And then everybody's like, well, what does that mean? You know, yeah, and acronyms, you share a whole bunch more and you know, does it really get to it? And yeah, and really, even the language that's there is less important than the conversation. So even just Miriam bringing it up and talking about in the conversation the board's having creates alignment with your one employee and with staff and everything to be able to give direction, which is honestly more important than the words on the page.
I would suggest that every once in a while the board pull us out and not the mission, the vision, or the values, but the goals and board objectives. Just read those words that are there and ask yourself, does that define what our board is? Is it clear? Or is it too wordy? Is it not clear enough?
And then ask questions of me.
Yeah.
And say, okay, what are things? In which ways are we being innovative right now?
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are things that we can have an ongoing dialogue around. That type of.
And one thing that I do when I read these type of documents, because I was raised as English as my second language. Anytime I see this, I have to translate it in Spanish, and when it doesn't make sense in Spanish because of the wording, that's when I have to question how feasible, how understandable is this. I have an education, but some of the words that we use are so high and technical that even if
jargony or
exactly,
yeah.
And that's where that's why I ask who sees this document, because for me to even translate this or interpret this, it would make no sense in Spanish. So that's why I'm you know, not only speaking on my behalf, but I'm making us think about when we create documents, language, we have to think about it. When we're going to translate this into another language, how is that language going to be? And so that's why it takes me longer sometimes to process information, because I'm doing it in two languages.
Yeah. Good point. Good lens to look through.
Or I would say that taking into consideration the amount of education people have, and if they read some of this, how would they?
Exactly.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, let's see. Moving forward, it seems like we're in a good spot to move forward. The next one that I have on the list are legislative talking points. Page 133 through 138. So you had asked during the retreat for some talking points. I put it together as an email, if I remember correctly. This is where my memory of what happened a week or so ago sometimes doesn't serve me well, but I'm pretty sure that I emailed this out to you as well. But you can see some of the talking points that we have here for primarily two programs that really need the advocacy. And then I gave you the two one-pagers. So when we talk with our lobbyists that work with other, like OAESD or COSA, they basically say, you know, you don't go in and talk to a legislator unless you have a one-pager to leave behind, and so that's what these two is. So if you end up talking with legislators, those are both really good pieces of information.
And I have extra, it's over here on the.
Oh, good, yeah, that's right, you make copies, if you want more copies, that's perfect, yeah. Another thing in terms of outreach, so are there questions about the legislative talking points? I want to pause there a second.
Really good.
All right, so moving forward, let's go past the apparel thing. Okay, other things in the packet are just information only, so I'm not going to go into those. But if you look at your places, and Jim, Lisa sent you an email with the last two things that I'm going to refer to for my, oh, actually, I'm sorry, I missed one. I missed the travel norms document. So let me go back to that. So go to page 142 and 143 of your packet. Sorry, I'm like checking things off and then I moved too fast. Okay, so there was a couple of different things that you had asked for on this. And so if you kind of scroll on down through here, there was a question regarding, let's see, now I have to find where I'm at here. Oh, I know, it's on the second page, on page 143. There was a discussion at the retreat around communication, and so I did put a bullet point in there where it says communication between board members will be facilitated by text messages between board members and the superintendent. Communication between staff members will be facilitated by Google Chat, and there will not be an expectation for staff members to communicate electronically with board members. So that, I hope, does that language capture our discussion that we had around that? And the rest of it is pretty much what we had. And so unless there's more discussion around it, I think we can, I'm just going to keep the updated thing, and it'll be something we bring back annually to the board. And if we make any updates, we'll change the date, but it can be a guidance document that we use for staff and also for board travel.
I have a question.
Yep.
On the gift limit, where it's all in italics,
Yes.
it says that during a calendar year, a public official, a candidate, or a relative of member of the household of the public official, is that, I'm trying to understand it. Does that mean my kid?
Yes.
So for instance, if my daughter's doing a fundraising thing, because she's doing a fundraiser for her class.
So the difference is,
I'm
if you read further into, so this
Okay.
is language, the reason why it's in italics, is language directly from the ORS.
Mm-hmm.
The important piece to always remember when it comes to ethics around public officials is you go to the last line of that first paragraph where it says, reasonably known to have legislative or administrative interest.
Okay.
So it's about if somebody,
Oh my God, it's doing a fundraiser.
if somebody could say, oh, this is going to sway the public officials. So your kids don't have legislative interest.
No, they don't. She
So-
just wants to go to Spain.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, oh,
Exactly.
snap, I'm helping her though.
But here's where, you know, the nuance with it, so let's use that as an example.
Yeah.
This is a good example. What you wouldn't want to do is have your daughter come to the in-service event and try to sell because you
Okay, 'cause
have a
I'm in the
legislative interest.
Got it,
You are in a power position where
Okay.
staff might feel like, oh my gosh, maybe
Yeah,
we
I
should
got
buy
it.
chocolate
We
we
should,
should buy
okay.
chocolate from Miriam's child so she can go to Spain.
Got
Like,
it.
that would be an
That
ethics
would be-
violation.
One more
Okay.
box of Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
so,
We're mostly doing bazaars.
yeah, so one of the examples that I've used over the years, you know, when I was a building principal, I always had to be really careful if my kids had a fundraiser or something like that. You know, if a staff member in a building has no, you know, they're all on the level with each other,
Mhm.
and there's no coercion that would happen, there's no, one of them is not writing the evaluation for another one,
Yeah.
they can put their kids' fundraiser
Huh.
things out on the staff room
Okay.
table, no problem at all.
Mhm.
As a building principal, I could never do that.
Yeah.
if I put that out on the staff room table and people are like, oh, so the principal is, you know, asking for it, and then staff might feel obligated to do it.
Okay.
You know, that was always the example that was given to me with the power dynamic and everything when I was a new administrator and had district level people. You know, and well, one person was very blunt with me, my first superintendent, like, that would be a very quick way to find yourself without a job. I'm like, gotcha.
No, it's nice to have examples,
Uh-huh,
because
exactly.
sometimes that,
Yes,
it's dead
that's,
and
that's-
confusing.
It
yes,
is.
that's why when I read it, I was like, oh, snap, does that mean
Yep.
my daughter can't find it?
No.
That's the whole point of doing
The
this.
reason why I put this in here, and I think that's the other context that's important for the board to know, is a little bit of professional development around this for the board. The main reason why this is in here for conferences is think about if you go to a conference and they give something away, if one of the
Yes.
vendors gives something away that
Yes.
has a value of $50 or more,
Mhm.
you should not accept it.
Got it.
Now, let's say it's an iPad.
I was gonna say, what if it
You
is
know?
an iPad and you get a raffle?
If you win an iPad in a raffle, your only way there's two ways that you can avoid the public ethics violation.
Okay.
One is not accept it,
Mhm.
and two is to donate it to the ESD.
Got it.
Is to say, I won this iPad
There
in
you
this
go.
raffle, I'm giving this to the ESD so a child of the ESD can use it.
What
That's, you know,
OSBA used to do years ago at the conference, they would go out blazer tickets, drawing for blazers, and so.
OSBA?
OSBA did,
Oh,
yes.
geez. Dang.
Yeah, that was years ago, but so, you know, they kind of curtailed that because it was like, oh, maybe you're in violation.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
$50.
Yeah, in fact, the vendors, when they would give stuff out, then they got the work. So this is a good question. So you're up at one of the conferences, and you win a drawing, and it's like a $25 item. And then you win another $25 item.
Yep, now you're at 50 from that one entity, you're fine, as long as you don't win 1 penny more than that. From a single entity. Now,
So from a-
that doesn't mean it's a
Okay.
single entity. That doesn't mean, if you go and you win a drawing from Power School and a drawing from Synergy and a drawing from, you know, whatever, you could win multiple drawings all the way around that all add up to more than 50, as long as it's not from one single entity.
Ah, so you can win 50 for one, 50
Yes.
from the other one, 50 for the
But
other.
you have to bear in mind, though, is it's for a calendar year. So
Oh.
if you happen to, go to another conference and win something else from that same entity, or maybe some sales rep says, hey, I will take your team out to dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and you got a dinner for $25, and then you win a $50 gift card
Oh,
from someone,
snap.
you just violated public ethics law by accepting that. So, yeah, you have
Wow.
to keep track of that. And it is, you know, it's an honor system, with checks and balances, because, you know, you could probably do that, and it might not bite you. But all it takes is someone to notice, and someone to file a complaint with the Ethics Commission,
Yep.
and then you are likely to get fined.
Okay, but I'm glad my medal was not $50. I'm pretty sure the medal
I think the
won-
medal is probably less than $1.
Yes, I'm
You're probably
okay,
good.
Woo!
Well, Tanya would go to those, and she would come back with,
She was
like,
so lucky,
examples
she
on
always
which
won
articles,
stuff.
and she would always give them to me to spend on the staff or
Aw.
something, so that way if she wasn't accepting
Yeah.
it, she would donate it to the
Nice.
entity.
Yeah,
She did that quite often.
she would win stuff, I never win stuff.
You don't have to worry about it.
I never have to worry about it, I don't win drawings. I don't know. I'm definitely not going to Vegas and, doing well in that way. So, any other questions about the travel norms? Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
All right. Captures what we wanted there. Okay, so now I'll go outside of the packet and do the last couple of things that are, also both follow-up items. And so I've kept Nathan busy with some follow-up items here. So the first one that has the picture of the kiddos on it, and some of our branding and everything, there was a request from David, so I'll connect with David so that he can hear this as well, about doing a one-pager, a general one-pager for our agency. Now, this one is a little bit more than just general. There's general information to some degree on here, but this is actually targeted. And so I want your feedback on this so that I'll revise any of it and then make it available to you. The target for this is helping with board member candidate recruitment. So, for example, if Roger, and I'll really encourage Roger to do this, goes out and, twists some arms in Monroe and says, you want more information, I've got a one-pager for you to look at, and we can have, one thing that we need to do is we probably need to put specifically my contact information, so if they want to meet with me, they can do that. So that's what this is for, and I would love for your feedback on it. I think Nathan did a pretty good job. It roughly has, we put the map on there, although it's pretty tiny. But what we can do, though, is we can also, I was thinking, after seeing this, of doing one of those QR code type of things.
With our interactive map, right?
There's a QR code.
There's a QR code about Meet the Board. I was thinking of a QR code for the map,
Yeah.
is what I was thinking too.
Yeah, you can barely read it.
Yeah.
Do we have access still to that interactive
We do.
map?
That's what
Because
this
I was
is.
gonna say, could we use that QR, because I know sometimes people can put in their address.
Yep,
And
and
then
that's
tell
what,
them
that's what
where
I'm
to
thinking,
go.
is
Okay.
we put a QR code that would take you to the map, they can put their address in, so
Mhm.
I can, do a little thing on that, so. What other things, I mean, there's steps on how to become a
The
board
colors
member.
could be tweaked a little bit, they don't quite line up.
Yeah. I think OSBA has
Like
a
there's a
link
red
on
there
there.
that's really what would that be? Shows up orange on the map.
Oh, yeah. I'll just put colors, question
Or
mark.
maybe that's
see.
not the
Are
one.
you talking about 5?
Yeah,
5 that's pink.
Yeah, pink or, yeah.
That's
pink, so I thought it was red.
I know.
It's salmon colored.
Anyway, I couldn't find it on the map.
Yeah. Other, Jim, online, anyone else, are there other things that you think would be good to revise this?
I think OSBA has some information that we could also put here as a link on how, like, they have
How to
training.
become a board member?
Yeah, and that's one thing I keep seeing on their weekly things, like at the bottom when you scroll, like, how to become a board member, like it has like trainings and stuff
Okay.
and questions, so I don't know if we could put like a QR code for that. 'Cause, I mean, that would be a lot of QR codes, but
But it's a good way to do it though, because then
yeah.
we can keep it clean and
Clean,
not have a lot of
exactly.
stuff on here.
Not
Yeah.
overwhelm it, yeah. QR code.
Enticing.
Uh-huh. This
That's
is
the idea.
fantastic.
For our open seats, we definitely need to see if we can find some good people that will file, so we don't end up with write-in campaigns. So, there you go. That can always be a wild card.
Back in the day.
Like back in the day. Back in my day, like,
Back in the day.
a few years ago.
A few years ago, back in the day, yeah.
Well, I know several, not that many years ago, there was an open position for a board, and it only took 17 signatures to get her in, so she just went around to friends and family, and said, write me in, and she was in. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the number is here, it has to do with the number of
Yeah,
your population.
it's a very tiny percentage.
It is,
Yes.
yes.
Gonna end up with some probably weird
We have some extras.
people.
Of these? Well, one thing that we're gonna do is, I will update it, so this is just a draft. I'll update it, and if you want, and I'm imagining you're gonna want this, we'll get it updated, and Lisa can mail you, some so that you have clean copies with the other QR codes and whatnot. Okay, does that look okay?
Yeah.
All right. The last one, was Nathan's idea that goes along with this.
Nathan's idea.
It was Nathan's idea after listening to everyone's feedback.
Oh, okay.
Yes, indeed. I will clarify that the idea is that we do more things with social media, where Nathan took it, and I think is really interesting here, is that, he's talking about.
He used ChatGPT, didn't he?
Uh-huh.
I knew it. I know those wordings.
He actually said that we can put together, and that this uses something slightly different than Chat 2 for part of it, but you can see on the back of this, that there's a social media post, that can happen. And so he's talking about doing a 30-day social media campaign, to bring awareness to LBL. he's using AI to write things, and, you know, you can see all the different things that he has ideas for. Our plan is to basically link in to our school districts so that hopefully we get this, you know, the school districts will have it on their page and get into that. But really, Nathan said it won't take very much to have AI produce something. We have to review it, of course, to make sure that it actually makes sense. But I just wanted to see if the board was up for us doing this in conjunction with things that we need to be working on here in the coming month as it relates to board candidate recruiting. So, and
I think this reads like what Miriam was talking about. The average person reading this is going to say more than the other information that we have.
yes, absolutely.
And we're not like blasting all of this at one time, like it would be chunks.
One day, you know, that's what Nathan said, you do something where there's one thing every day and people are like, oh,
That's interesting.
LBL. I think I've heard of LBL, you know, on a
And then
seventh
go
or
get
eighth
their
day.
algorithm,
you know.
and then they'll see your stuff all the time.
There you
That's
go.
the point.
So anyway, that's what that page is, and so
What software does he use?
I don't,
I'm like, come
I'll
on.
ask him.
I was like, give us the secret.
Yeah, so as we do this, in one of my update emails, I'll send it out to you, but
Okay.
I
What he
I
uses
don't
for
know.
images and
Yeah,
for writing.
because the writing, I think, might be
chat.
coming that's chat, but then there's stuff for the images,
Yeah.
because all of the images are actually AI.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Those aren't real people that are in there.
I read an interesting article in Scientific American
Crazy.
about AI, that people who are experts are better at creative thinking than people that use the internet to investigate stuff for them. So they're afraid that the more people use AI, the less they're going to use their minds, and it actually affects how they learn.
Wow,
I wouldn't doubt that. No.
that's correct.
So I think we have to be careful about it. And the way you're using it is really just to collaborate with
Yeah.
Exactly.
already been
Or
created.
create a tool.
But when kids start using it to be creative, they lose the ability to be creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's that whole idea around, you know, would you want something that, a piece of art, or is AI going to replace, you know, your typical artist? And in my estimation, probably not for most things. Or for something like creating a social media, you know, campaign, or, you know, where it's just a tool that creates efficiency, yeah, I think that's the case. But, you know, I don't think that people who are into painting, for example, are going to be put out of business in terms of like fine artists and whatnot, because there's, but yeah. For us, one of the things that we will continue to use it for is really just as an efficiency tool, you know, and I think that's where it makes sense. You know, it's like my example, I think I might have used in the retreat around, you know, construction people that are using a nail gun or a power saw, you know, like they're not using hand tools in the same way. Right. That's all I have for you, and, yeah.
Did anybody else? Nancy, do you have anything?
No, not this time, next time.
The promise?
Stay on the agenda.
Oh, yeah.
How about you, Jim? Do you have any questions?
I've got
Any
nothing.
comments? You got nothing? For nothing. All right. Are you ready to wrap this up?
I'm ready.
Ready, all right. So we'll go down to the important dates. Wednesday, March 12th at 4:30 to 5:30 is a capital improvement meeting. March 12th is also our board meeting, 6 o'clock. Tuesday, April 8th is 5:30 to 7:30 is our special education resource fair, and I'm looking forward to that so much. I was so ready for last year. Can we do two this year? I mean, I haven't got much time.
Yeah, we do too. That may be pushing it, Chief.
Oh, all right, should have asked sooner, okay. So then Wednesday, April 16th, 4:30 to 5:30 is communication outreach, meeting. And then Wednesday, April 16th is our regular board meeting at 6. Friday, May 8th and 9th is the all-day ESD Spring Conference. Wednesday, May 21st, 5 to 6 is a regular board meeting. And then Wednesday, May 5 to 6 is our board meeting. And then 6 o'clock is our first budget meeting.
Those are the back-to-back ones that we do in May.
And we'll be ready, right, Wasco?
Oh, hell yeah.
Enthusiasm, I like the enthusiasm. Okay. Is there anything else?
Just real quick, March 3rd, we have the board member, that training, right?
For those that didn't.
For those that didn't already do the virtual, I was
Correct.
originally gonna do the virtual, so I was just throwing that out there as a reminder.
You're gonna come in person then?
Yes, I'm gonna come in person, because it just didn't end up being a good day for the virtual one, so.
I know I got you signed up already, I might have.
I think you might have.
You might have.
I did.
I did the
virtual.
I did the
Which
virtual.
is good, because I was planning on
Oh, yeah, I
coming
saw
anyway.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know David did the virtual too.
What day was that again, March?
It's March 3rd here in person.
Right.
That's Monday, right?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. With that, Mr. Jim, I will bid you good night. Oh, Jim. Good night, folks. Meeting's adjourned.